The massive alien ship hung in Earth's orbit like a dark omen against the stars. Its crystalline hull caught the sunlight and threw it back in sharp rainbow patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. The ship was 3 kilometers long and shaped like a giant sword, its edges sharp enough to cut space itself. Inside the United Nations headquarters in New Geneva, President Sarah Martinez sat at the head of a long table. Around her, the faces of Earth's leaders showed worry and anger in equal measure. They had been waiting for this moment for 3 years, ever since humanity had made contact with what called itself the Galactic Council. The doors at the far end of the room opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador HFY entered, and several people around the table shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. The alien was tall, nearly 3 meters high, and made entirely of what looked like living crystal. Its body caught the room's lights and split them into dancing colors on the walls. When it moved, tiny musical notes seemed to ring out from somewhere deep inside its chest. "Humans of Earth," HFY began, its voice sounding like wind chimes in a storm, "I bring you the final decision of the Galactic Council." President Martinez kept her face calm, though her hands were clenched under the table. "We're listening, Ambassador. The Council has watched your species for 3 of your years now," HFY continued, moving to stand before the large display screen at the front of the room. With a gesture, the screen came alive with images of human ships and colonies scattered across nearby star systems. "What we have seen troubles us greatly." The alien touched the screen and the images zoomed in on various scenes. Human mining operations on asteroid belts, military ships patrolling between worlds, construction of what looked like weapon platforms around colony worlds. "Your kind expands too quickly," HFY said. "In just 200 of your years, you have gone from a single world to 27 colonies. This rate of growth is dangerous and unstable." General Harrison, Earth's top military commander, leaned forward. "We're just trying to find new homes for our people. Earth is getting crowded." HFY's crystal head turned toward the general and tiny lights flickered deep inside its face. "Growth is acceptable, but your methods are not. You bring weapons everywhere you go. You build military bases before you build schools. You treat space as if it belongs to you alone." "We defend what's ours," Martinez replied firmly. "Any species would do the same." "Would they?" The alien's voice rose slightly, creating a sound like glass breaking. "The Council has 47 member species. We have lived in peace for over 3,000 years. We settle disputes with words, not weapons. We share resources instead of fighting over them. This is how civilized beings behave." The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone could feel the weight of what was coming next. HFY touched the screen again and new images appeared. These showed massive alien ships, hundreds of them, arranged in perfect formations around various worlds. The ships were beautiful in their own way, but their size and number made them terrifying. "The Council controls over 2 million worlds," the alien continued. "Our combined fleets number more than 50,000 ships. Each of our vessels is larger and more advanced than anything your species has ever built. We tell you this not to threaten, but to help you understand reality." Defense Minister Chen spoke up from across the table. "Are you trying to scare us, Ambassador?" "I am trying to save your species from making a terrible mistake," HFY replied. "The Council has been patient with humanity because you are young. We remember what it was like when our own species first reached for the stars, but patience has limits." The alien moved closer to the table, and the musical sounds from its body grew quieter, more serious. "The Council has voted. By a count of 47 to 0, we have decided that humanity's expansion must be controlled. You have 30 standard galactic days to comply with our requirements." Martinez felt her heart sink but kept her voice steady. "What requirements?" HFY gestured, and a new document appeared on the screen. The text was in perfect English, but the words felt like physical blows as Martinez read them. "First," the alien said, "all human military activities beyond your solar system must cease immediately. Second, you will surrender administrative control of 13 of your colony worlds to Council oversight. We will choose which ones. Third, all future human expansion must be approved by the Council in advance. Fourth, Earth will accept a permanent Council monitoring station in orbit around your homeworld." The silence in the room was complete. President Martinez could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "And if we refuse?" she asked quietly. HFY's crystal form seemed to grow brighter for a moment. "Then the Council will take corrective action. Your colonies will be occupied by Council forces. Your ships will be disabled or destroyed. Earth itself will be placed under direct council rule until your species learns to behave in a civilized manner. General Harrison stood up slowly, his face red with anger. You're talking about conquest. About enslaving the entire human race. We are talking about guidance, Zexai corrected. Many young species go through this phase. They expand too quickly, become too aggressive, threaten the stability of civilized space. The Council has helped dozens of species learn to control these impulses. In time, perhaps humanity will be ready to join us as equals. How long is in time? Asked Dr. Voss, Earth's chief scientist. Usually between 500 and 1,000 years, the alien replied casually, as if discussing the weather. The words hit the room like a physical force. 1,000 years of occupation, 1,000 years of being treated like children by alien overlords. Martinez stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Ambassador, you need to understand something about humans. We don't respond well to ultimatums. Zexai tilted its head, creating a sound like wind chimes. Your response is irrelevant, President Martinez. The mathematics are simple. You have perhaps 200 ships total. The Council has 50,000. You control 27 worlds. We control 2 million. You have existed in space for 2 centuries. We have maintained galactic peace for 30 centuries. There is no scenario in which resistance benefits your species. Maybe not, Martinez said, walking around the table to face the alien directly. But there's something you should know about humans, Ambassador. When someone tries to put us in chains, we don't calculate odds. We don't consider whether resistance is logical. We fight. The crystal being's lights flickered in what might have been amusement. Your spirit is admirable if misguided. But spirit alone cannot overcome such overwhelming force. The Council fleet assigned to your correction consists of 12 different species and over 2,000 ships. They are already moving toward your space. 30 days, Martinez said. It wasn't a question. 30 days, Zexai confirmed. Use that time wisely. Accept the inevitable. Save your species unnecessary suffering. The alien turned and walked toward the door, its crystal feet ringing against the floor like small bells. Just before leaving, it paused and looked back. For what it is worth, President Martinez, I hope your species makes the intelligent choice. The universe has room for humanity, but only if humanity learns its proper place. The door closed behind the alien with a soft whisper. For a long moment, nobody in the room moved or spoke. Finally, General Harrison broke the silence. Well, he said grimly, I guess we know where we stand. President Martinez was still staring at the door where the alien had disappeared. 30 days, she said quietly. They think that's enough time for us to roll over and surrender. Madam President, Defense Minister Chen said carefully, the numbers they quoted, 2,000 ships just in their advance force. Martinez turned to face the room full of Earth's leaders. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something that would have surprised Ambassador Zexai. I want every ship we have recalled to Earth immediately, she said. Every colony, every outpost, every mining station. Bring them all home. You're thinking of surrendering? Asked Dr. Voss. The president's smile was sharp as a blade. No, Doctor. I'm thinking of war. Admiral Thexmore of the Hegemony Navy stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the sensor displays with satisfaction. Around his ship, the combined Council fleet moved in perfect formation through space. 2,000 vessels from 12 different species all working together like parts of a great machine. The alien admiral was proud of this fleet. His own people, the Hegemony, provided 400 ships. The crystal-bodied Vorthak had contributed 300 of their sword-shaped vessels. The gaseous Whisper Collective had sent 200 of their sphere ships that moved like living clouds. Every species in the fleet was older and wiser than the humans they were about to correct. Admiral, his communication officer reported, we are approaching the human colony system designated Kepler Station. Thexmore nodded his great head. The Hegemony looked somewhat like giant lizards, but with 4 arms and skin that changed colors with their emotions. Right now, his skin showed the deep blue of confidence. What do our sensors show? He asked. The system appears to be abandoned, sir, the officer replied. We are detecting minimal life signs around the main station. Perhaps a few hundred humans at most. This surprised Thexmore slightly. Intelligence reports had suggested Kepler Station housed nearly 50,000 humans and served as a major mining operation. He had expected to find at least some military resistance. Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach, suggested Commander Yilseth, his second in command. The humans may be more intelligent than we thought. Or more cowardly, added Captain Zordon from the communications station. Several other officers made sounds that might have been laughter in their various species. Admiral Thexmore studied the tactical display. The Kepler system contained a main sequence star surrounded by 7 planets and 2 dense asteroid belts. The human mining station was built into the largest asteroid in the inner belt. It looked like any other mining operation he had seen, with docking arms extending from the rocky surface and storage tanks for processed materials. "Deploy the fleet in standard occupation formation," he ordered. "First and second battle groups will secure the station. Third and fourth groups will patrol the outer system. Fifth group remains in reserve." The Council fleet moved like a well-trained dance troupe, ships spread out in predetermined patterns, each captain knowing exactly where to position their vessel. It was a formation they had used hundreds of times before during peacekeeping operations across the galaxy. As they drew closer to Kepler Station, Admiral Thexmore felt a growing sense of unease. Something about this felt wrong. In his 400 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the asteroid belt." "Define unusual," Thexmore replied. "It's difficult to explain, sir. The asteroids themselves seem to be generating small amounts of power, but that should be impossible unless—" The sentence was never finished. The asteroid belt around them suddenly came alive with light and fire. What Admiral Thexmore had taken for ordinary space rocks were revealed to be something much more dangerous. Dozens of asteroids split open like giant eggs, revealing human warships hidden inside. But these weren't the small, primitive vessels the Council had expected to find. The human ships that emerged were sleek and deadly, painted black to blend with space itself. They moved with impossible speed and grace, accelerating in ways that should have crushed their crews. As they burst from their hiding places, they opened fire immediately, but they weren't using normal weapons. Instead of the energy beams or plasma cannons favored by most galactic species, the humans fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. The railgun rounds punched through Council ship shields like they weren't even there, leaving gaping holes in hulls that had been considered nearly indestructible. "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Thexmore shouted, but his perfectly ordered formation was already falling apart. The human attack was unlike anything in the Council's military databases. There was no formal challenge, no declaration of combat intentions, no opportunity for surrender. The humans simply appeared and began killing with the efficiency that terrified the veteran admiral. Forthak crystal ship to his left suddenly exploded in a shower of rainbow fragments as 3 human vessels concentrated their fire on its weakest point. The humans had studied Council ship designs and knew exactly where to hit for maximum damage. "Sir, they're using some kind of coordinated battle network," his tactical officer reported, fear clear in his voice. "Every human ship knows where every other human ship is at all times. They're fighting like a single organism with dozens of bodies. More Council ships died as the humans pressed their attack. The enemy vessels moved in 3-dimensional patterns that made no sense to minds trained in traditional space combat. They would dive below the plane of battle, loop around behind larger ships, and strike from angles that should have been impossible to achieve. Worse, they were targeting specific systems on each ship. Engines, weapons, life support, command centers. The humans weren't just trying to destroy the Council fleet. They were trying to disable it and leave the crews to die slowly in the cold of space. "Return fire," Thexmore ordered. "All ships concentrate on the nearest enemy vessels." The Council fleet tried to respond, but their weapons seemed almost useless against the human ships. The enemy vessels were smaller and faster than anything in the Council databases. They used their speed and maneuverability to avoid most incoming fire, and when they were hit, their armor seemed to absorb damage that should have crippled them. Admiral Thexmore watched in growing horror as his fleet was torn apart. Ships that had served with honor for centuries were being reduced to scrap metal by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive savages. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Kepler Station," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Thexmore ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of a human female in military uniform. She appeared to be in her 40s with graying hair and cold, calculating eyes. Behind her, Thexmore could see what looked like a military command center built deep inside the asteroid. "I am Colonel Sarah Chen, commanding officer of Kepler Defense Station," the human said calmly. "Admiral, you are trespassing in human space without permission. Withdraw your forces immediately or face the consequences. Thexmore stared at the screen in disbelief. His fleet was being decimated, and this human was talking to him as if she held all the advantages. You cannot be serious, he replied. We outnumber you 10 to 1. Our ships are larger and more advanced than anything your species has ever built. The human colonel smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. Admiral, you're thinking like someone who fights wars in the old way. Formal battles, big ships trading fire until one side gives up. That's not how humans fight. As if to prove her point, another section of the asteroid belt suddenly revealed itself to be artificial. What had looked like ordinary rocks were actually weapon platforms built into the asteroids themselves. Massive railgun batteries opened fire on the Council fleet from multiple directions. The hidden guns were enormous, far larger than anything that could be mounted on a ship. They fired metal slugs the size of ground vehicles at significant fractions of light speed. When the projectiles hit Council vessels, the results were catastrophic. Entire ships simply vaporized under the impact. We've been preparing for this day since we first met your Council, Colonel Chen continued as explosions lit up space around Thexmore's flagship. We studied your ships, your tactics, your weaknesses. We turned this entire system into a trap, and you flew right into it. Admiral Thexmore realized with growing horror that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans hadn't abandoned Kepler Station. They had turned it into a fortress and used it as bait to lure the Council fleet into a killing ground. Sir? His tactical officer called out urgently. We've lost over 600 ships. The fleet is requesting permission to withdraw. The Admiral looked at his displays. The perfectly organized Council formation had become a scattered mess of burning ships and debris. Human vessels darted between the larger Council ships like wolves among sheep, striking fast and hard before disappearing back into the chaos. All ships, he ordered with a heavy heart. Full retreat. Emergency jump to rally point 7. As the surviving Council ships began activating their faster-than-light drives, Colonel Chen spoke again from the screen. Admiral, when you report back to your Council, make sure you tell them exactly what happened here. This was just a single human colony, barely defended by our standards. If you want to see what our real military can do, please feel free to continue this war. The transmission cut off just as Thexmore's ship jumped to safety. Behind them, Kepler Station continued to exist, still in human hands, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been the pride of the Council fleet. In the aftermath of the battle, rescue ships from both sides worked to save survivors from the vacuum of space, but the damage was done. Of the 2,000 ships that had approached Kepler Station with such confidence, fewer than 300 limped away from the system. Admiral Thexmore sat in his command chair, staring at the casualty reports with disbelief. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive circular room, their voices creating a symphony of anger and fear. Some spoke in musical tones, others in harsh clicks and whistles. But the message was the same in every language. Humanity had to be stopped. High Counselor Vexithera of the Ancient Makers floated above the central platform, her energy form pulsing with barely controlled rage. She had lived for over 2,000 years and had never seen such a humiliating defeat as the one at Kepler Station. The human infestation has gone too far, she declared, her voice echoing through translation devices around the chamber. They have destroyed 1,300 of our finest ships and killed over 40,000 of our people. This cannot stand. Ambassador Zexhai of the HFY Empire stood to speak, his crystal body darker than usual, reflecting his mood. High Counselor, with respect, perhaps we underestimated their capabilities. Their tactics were unconventional. Unconventional, roared General Mordak of the War Clans, his massive bulk shaking with fury. They hid inside asteroids like cowards. They used projectile weapons like primitives. They showed no honor, no respect for civilized warfare. And yet they won, observed Professor Quintel of the Scholar Caste quietly. The small, bird-like alien's words cut through the noise like a knife. Perhaps we need to reconsider our approach. High Counselor Vexthera's energy form flared brighter. There will be no reconsideration. The Council has maintained peace and order in this galaxy for 3,000 years. We will not allow one upstart species to destroy everything we have built. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the positions of various fleets throughout Council space. I am authorizing the deployment of the Purge Fleet, she announced. The chamber fell silent. Even among the diverse alien species present, everyone knew what the Purge fleet represented. It was the Council's ultimate weapon, used only against species that posed an existential threat to galactic civilization. High Counselor, Ambassador Zexhai said carefully, "The Purge fleet hasn't been deployed in over 800 years. Are we certain this situation warrants such extreme measures? The humans have proven they cannot be reasoned with," Bexthera replied. "They respond to our attempts at peaceful correction with violence and savagery. The Purge fleet will eliminate their ability to threaten civilized space permanently." What the Council didn't know was that their emergency session was being watched. Deep in space, hidden among the outer planets of the Council's home system, a human stealth ship recorded every word. The ship was so small and well shielded that even the Council's most advanced sensors couldn't detect it. Captain Maria Santos watched the alien deliberations with growing alarm. The Purge fleet was legendary even among humans. Intelligence reports suggested it contained over 5,000 ships, including planet killers capable of destroying entire worlds. "Get me a secure connection to Earth Command," she ordered her communications officer. "Priority Alpha. Tell them the Council just declared total war." While the Council debated and planned, humanity was already moving. The victory at Kepler Station had been just the beginning. Across human space, colony worlds activated defense plans that had been years in the making. On New Harmony, civilian transports suddenly revealed themselves to be carrying military equipment instead of trade goods. Mining ships in the outer systems began deploying sensor networks that could track Council fleet movements across dozens of light years. Space stations that appeared to be simple research facilities opened hidden weapons bays. But most importantly, the human fleet began doing something the Council had never seen before. Instead of waiting for the enemy to come to them, human ships launched preemptive strikes across the galaxy. The first target was a Council supply depot near the edge of their territory. The facility was massive, designed to fuel and resupply entire fleets. It was defended by a garrison of 50 ships and was considered completely safe, being located far from any human colonies. The attack came without warning. 3 human ships appearing out of nowhere struck the depot with surgical precision, but they didn't use conventional weapons. Instead, they deployed a virus into the station's computer systems. Within minutes, the depot's automated systems turned against their operators. Fuel pumps began mixing chemicals that created massive explosions. Cargo handling equipment started firing supplies into space instead of loading them onto ships. Life support systems began venting atmosphere into the vacuum. By the time the garrison ships realized what was happening, it was too late. The depot was destroying itself from the inside, and the human ships had already vanished back into hyperspace. Similar attacks began happening across Council space. Communication relay stations found their signals being hijacked and used to spread disinformation. Automated defense platforms turned their weapons on their own ships. Even civilian facilities weren't safe, as their computer systems were infected with viruses that caused everything from traffic control to food production to fail. The Council had never faced an enemy that fought like this. Humans didn't just attack military targets. They attacked the infrastructure that made civilization possible. They turned the Council's own technology against them, creating chaos and panic on worlds that hadn't seen violence in centuries. But the worst was yet to come. The planet Serenity had been a Council world for over 1,000 years. It was home to the peaceful Harmony Singers, a species that communicated through beautiful music and had never known war. Their cities were works of art, built in perfect harmony with the planet's natural environment. The human attack began with what appeared to be a meteor shower. But these weren't natural meteors. They were human drop pods, small and stealthy, designed to penetrate planetary defenses undetected. The pods didn't contain soldiers. Instead, they carried something much more terrifying: biological weapons designed specifically for the Harmony Singers' unique physiology. Within hours, a plague began spreading through Serenity's cities. But this wasn't just any disease. The humans had studied Harmony Singer biology and created a virus that attacked their ability to create music. The beautiful songs that were the foundation of their civilization became discordant screams of pain. The planet's communication system, which relied on musical harmonies, collapsed completely. Harmony Singers couldn't coordinate relief efforts or even call for help. In 3 days, A civilization that had existed for millennia was reduced to chaos and suffering. When Council relief ships finally arrived, they found cities full of beings who could no longer communicate with each other, their entire way of life destroyed by human weapons they couldn't understand or counter. The psychological impact across Council space was devastating. If the humans could do this to Serenity, they could do it to any world. The galaxy's oldest and most peaceful species began demanding protection, creating panic and confusion throughout the Council's territories. Admiral Thexmore, still recovering from the disaster at Kepler Station, received orders to lead a task force to the human colony of New Geneva. Intelligence suggested it was lightly defended, and the Council desperately needed a victory to restore confidence in their military. But when his ships arrived at the system, they found something that defied all logic. New Geneva's star was surrounded by what appeared to be a ring of artificial structures. The ring was enormous, spanning the entire orbit of the system's asteroid belt. "What are those things?" Thexmore asked his science officer. "Analyzing now, sir," came the reply. "They appear to be mirror arrays, massive reflective surfaces designed to focus starlight." The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. "Focus it where?" His question was answered when the mirrors suddenly adjusted their positions. The combined light of an entire star, concentrated into a beam narrow enough to thread a needle, struck his flagship's escorts simultaneously. The Council ships didn't explode. They simply vaporized, turned into clouds of superheated gas in the space of seconds. The mirrors readjusted and more ships died in flashes of stellar fire. "Full retreat," Thexmore ordered, but it was too late. The mirror array could target anything within the system faster than his ships could escape. Of the 300 vessels he had brought to New Geneva, only his flagship and 12 escorts managed to jump to hyperspace before the stellar laser found them. As his ship fled through hyperspace, Admiral Thexmore realized the horrible truth. Humanity wasn't just fighting a war. They were rewriting the rules of warfare itself. They used tactics and weapons that no civilized species would ever consider, turning the Council's own technology and infrastructure against them. But perhaps most terrifying of all, they showed no signs of slowing down. Each attack was more devastating than the last, each new weapon more horrifying than anything the galaxy had seen before. The Council had wanted to teach humanity their place in the galactic order. Instead, humanity was teaching the Council what it meant to face an enemy that refused to accept defeat. No matter the odds, across Council space the message was becoming clear. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove that they belonged among the stars, and they would burn down the entire galaxy before they accepted submission. Supreme Admiral Kethavar of the HFY Empire stood before the holographic war table in his command center, watching the tactical displays with growing disbelief. The crystalline being had commanded fleets for over 6 centuries, but he had never seen anything like the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. "Show me the latest casualty figures," he ordered his staff. The hologram updated and the numbers were staggering. In just 4 months of warfare, the Council had lost over 30,000 ships and seen dozens of worlds attacked or occupied. But what disturbed Kethavar most wasn't the losses. It was how the humans were achieving them. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we have confirmation that human ships have been spotted using Council technology, specifically hegemony shield generators and Vorthak crystal matrix drives." The Supreme Admiral's body flashed through several colors indicating his emotional state. "That's impossible. Our technology is biometrically locked. Only our species can operate it." "Apparently not anymore, sir," the officer continued. "Human engineers have found ways to modify our systems. They're using our own advances against us, but combining them with their own designs in ways we never considered." Kethavar studied the tactical display showing the latest human ship designs. The vessels were still smaller than most Council ships, but they had grown larger and deadlier with each passing month. Worse, they now incorporated the best technology from every Council species, creating hybrid ships that outperformed anything in the galaxy. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence suggested humanity had barely achieved faster than light travel 2 centuries ago. They should be thousands of years behind our technical capabilities." His chief scientist, an elderly Vorthak named Zilthara, stepped forward. Her crystal body was pale with age, but her mind remained sharp. "Supreme Admiral, I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood human nature. Most species develop technology gradually, building on the work of previous generations. Humans appear to be different. She gestured, and the display showed human industrial facilities across their colonies. They don't just improve existing technology incrementally. They completely reimagine it. When they encounter something new, they don't ask, how can we use this the same way? They ask, what else could this do? The scientist highlighted several human modifications to Council technology. Look at how they've modified hegemony shield generators. We use them for defense. Humans have weaponized them, creating shield rams that can punch through ship hulls. They took Whisper collective communication technology and turned it into a weapon that can scramble enemy ship systems across entire star systems. Supreme Admiral Kethvar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. What about the Purge fleet? Surely 5,000 of our finest ships can overcome whatever tricks the humans have developed. Sir, another officer interrupted. We're receiving an emergency transmission from the Purge fleet. They've reached the outer edge of human space. The holographic display shifted to show the massive Council armada. 5,000 ships from every member species, including planet killers capable of sterilizing entire worlds. It was the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Fleet Commander Vexthal appeared on the communication screen. The energy being's form was flickering with agitation. Supreme Admiral, we have encountered something unexpected. Report, Kethvar ordered. We approached the human system designated Ross 128, expecting to find a typical colony world with minimal defenses. Instead, we found this. The display changed to show what looked like an artificial asteroid field surrounding the entire system. But as Kethvar studied the images more closely, he realized these weren't asteroids at all. Those are ships, he whispered. Yes, sir, Vexthal confirmed. Over 1,500 human vessels positioned throughout the system. But that's not the strangest part. They're not moving. They're just waiting. The Supreme Admiral stared at the tactical display. The human fleet was arranged in what looked like a defensive formation, but something about their positioning bothered him. It was too perfect, too deliberate. Fleet Commander, what are your sensors telling you about those ships? That's the problem, sir. They're reading as active vessels with full crews, but they're not responding to our communications attempts. They're not even targeting us with their weapon systems, they're just sitting there. Kethvar studied the formation more carefully. The human ships were arranged in geometric patterns that made no tactical sense from a traditional military perspective. But humans, he was learning, rarely did things that made sense to other species. Sir, his science officer called out urgently, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human formation. All their ships are charging some kind of weapon simultaneously. The Supreme Admiral realized what was happening just a moment too late. Vexthal, get your fleet out of there now. The human ships fired as one, but they weren't aiming at the Council fleet. Instead, they were targeting empty space around the Purge fleet's position. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to tear. The humans had weaponized faster than light technology, creating artificial tears in the fabric of space-time. The Purge fleet found itself caught in a maze of unstable wormholes that appeared and disappeared randomly around them. Ships that tried to move forward found themselves thrown backwards in time. Vessels that attempted to retreat emerged in different locations entirely. Some ships simply vanished, lost in pocket dimensions that might not even exist anymore. What's happening? Fleet Commander Vexthal screamed through the communication link as his flagship spun helplessly through a temporal anomaly. They've turned space itself into a weapon, Kethvar replied with horror. They're not just fighting us, they're fighting the laws of physics. The Purge fleet, the Council's ultimate weapon, was being torn apart by forces no military strategist had ever considered. Ships designed to destroy planets were being crushed by gravitational anomalies, or stretched across multiple dimensions. But the humans weren't finished. As the Council fleet struggled with the space-time distortions, human ships began appearing throughout the chaos. Not the vessels that had created the trap, but new ships that seemed to emerge from the unstable wormholes themselves. These ships were different from anything seen before. They were larger than previous human designs, and they moved through the distorted space as if the laws of physics didn't apply to them. They fired weapons that seemed to reach their targets before they were actually launched, and they vanished and reappeared at will. "Sir," the intelligence officer reported with a shaking voice, "we're receiving data from the battle zone. The human ships are using the space-time distortions to their advantage. They've found a way to navigate through the artificial wormholes." Supreme Admiral Kethvar watched in stunned silence as humanity's new fleet systematically destroyed the pride of the Council military. The Purge fleet, which had been expected to end the war in a single devastating campaign, was being annihilated by an enemy that fought with weapons pulled from science fiction nightmares. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked quietly. "Current estimate is over 3,000 vessels destroyed or missing," came the reply. "The remainder of the Purge fleet is attempting to retreat, but the space-time distortions are making it difficult to establish stable jump points." The Supreme Admiral closed his eyes, though the gesture was barely visible through his crystalline form. In a few hours, humanity had destroyed the largest military force in galactic history, not through superior numbers or better ships, but by rewriting the fundamental rules of warfare. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Vorthak homeworld. It's marked as a planetary emergency." Kethvar felt his crystal heart sink. "Put it through." The display showed the capital city of his homeworld, but something was terribly wrong. The beautiful crystal spires that had stood for millennia were cracking and falling. The harmonic frequencies that kept Vorthak architecture stable were being disrupted by something. "Supreme Admiral," the planetary governor's voice was filled with panic. "We're under attack, but we can't see the enemy. Our buildings are destroying themselves. The harmony crystals that power our civilization are resonating at destructive frequencies." Through the chaos of the transmission, Kethvar could see human ships in orbit around his homeworld. They were broadcasting some kind of signal that was interfering with the quantum frequencies his people used for everything, from communication to construction. "They've found our weakness," he whispered. The Vorthak civilization was based on crystalline harmony, on precise frequencies that kept their technology and even their bodies stable. The humans had discovered this and weaponized sound itself against them. As he watched, the greatest city in Vorthak space crumbled to dust, its crystal towers unable to maintain their structural integrity under the human sonic assault. Millions of his people were dying, not from explosions or fire, but from the fundamental breakdown of everything that made their civilization possible. The communication cut off, leaving Supreme Admiral Kethvar staring at a blank screen. In one day, humanity had destroyed the Council's greatest fleet and attacked the homeworld of one of the galaxy's most powerful species. The Council Emergency Assembly Station hung in the void between galaxies, far from any star system that might become a battlefield. It had been built as a last resort meeting place, somewhere the galaxy's leaders could gather if their very civilization faced destruction. Today, that theoretical crisis had become reality. High Counselor Vexthara materialized at the center of the Great Chamber, her energy form dimmer than it had ever been. Around her, the surviving representatives of the Galactic Council took their positions. Many seats remained empty. Some species had lost their homeworlds entirely, while others were too busy fighting for survival to send delegates. "Fellow beings," Vexthara began, her voice carrying none of its usual authority, "we face a situation unprecedented in our 3,000 years of civilization. In 6 months, the human species has reduced our combined fleets from 50,000 ships to fewer than 8,000 operational vessels. The numbers hit the assembled aliens like physical blows. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were now reduced to scattered refugee fleets, hiding in the dark spaces between stars." Ambassador HFY of the HFY Empire spoke first. His crystal form cracked and darkened with grief. "High Counselor, my homeworld no longer exists. The humans didn't destroy it. They made it uninhabitable by disrupting the harmonic frequencies that sustain Vorthak life. 3 billion of my people died in agony as their own bodies turned against them." A low moan escaped from the Harmony Singer representative, one of the few survivors from Serenity. Her musical voice was broken, reduced to discordant notes that hurt to hear. "They took our songs," she whispered. "They stole our ability to be who we are." General Mordak of the War Clan slammed one massive fist against his seat's armrest. "How is this possible? We had every advantage. Numbers, technology, experience, the support of 47 civilizations. How did we lose to one species of primitives? Professor Quintel of the scholar caste, her small form trembling with exhaustion, answered quietly. Because they're not primitives, General. We made the mistake of equating technological age with capability. Humans may have achieved spaceflight recently, but they've been perfecting warfare for their entire species' history. The professor activated a holographic display showing human military doctrine. While we developed advanced technology for peaceful purposes and only maintained military forces for police actions, humans have spent thousands of years learning to kill each other efficiently. When they reached the stars, they brought that knowledge with them. They fight without honor, General Mordak growled. They use biological weapons, turn our own technology against us, attack civilian populations. No civilized species wages war like this. That's exactly the point, Quintel replied. We've been civilized for so long that we forgot what real warfare looks like. Humans never forgot. They adapted our technology not to maintain peace but to wage war more effectively than anyone thought possible. High Counselor Vex Ithara pulsed with frustrated energy. The question now is not how we lost, but whether we can negotiate a settlement that allows our species to survive. The humans have demonstrated they can destroy us whenever they choose. We must hope they're willing to show mercy. Mercy. Ambassador Zexhi's voice cracked like breaking glass. They turned my world into a resonance weapon that killed billions. They infected entire populations with viruses designed to destroy their fundamental nature. These creatures know nothing of mercy. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The assembled council members looked around in confusion until a voice came over the communication system. High Counselor Vex Thara, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to lower your station's defenses and prepare for boarding. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives demanded they fight. Others called for immediate surrender. But High Counselor Vex Ithara knew the truth that many were unwilling to accept. Lower all shields and weapon systems, she ordered. Humanity has found us despite our hiding in the void between galaxies. Resistance at this point would be suicide. The station's defenses deactivated, and within minutes human ships appeared around the facility. They hadn't jumped in using conventional faster-than-light drives. They had simply materialized from nothing, suggesting they had developed some form of teleportation technology. The human ships that surrounded the council station were unlike anything seen before in the war. They were massive, dwarfing even the largest council vessels, and their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. More disturbing, they moved without any visible means of propulsion, gliding through space as if gravity itself bent to their will. Admiral Chen's voice came through the station's communication system again. Council representatives, you will remain in your assembly chamber. A human delegation will join you shortly to discuss terms. The chamber fell silent as they waited. When the doors finally opened, what entered shocked the assembled aliens more than any weapon could have. The human delegation consisted of only 3 people. Admiral Chen, an older woman with gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Beside her walked a younger man in a civilian suit who introduced himself as Dr. James Morrison, Earth's chief scientist. The third figure was President Martinez herself, the leader who had refused the Council's original ultimatum. What struck the aliens most was how ordinary the humans looked. After months of fighting against an enemy that seemed capable of impossible things, the Council had expected to meet some kind of super beings. Instead, they faced 3 individuals who could have walked down any street on their homeworlds without drawing attention. President Martinez took her place at the center of the chamber, looking calmly at the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. When she spoke, her voice was steady and matter-of-fact. 6 months ago, you gave humanity an ultimatum. You demanded we surrender our colonies, accept your oversight, and submit to 1,000 years of occupation. We declined your generous offer. High Counselor Vex Ithara's energy form flickered nervously. President Martinez, we acknowledge that our initial assessment of humanity's capabilities was incomplete. We're prepared to negotiate a more equitable arrangement. The human leader smiled, but the expression held no warmth. Counselor, there seems to be some confusion about our current positions. You're not here to negotiate with us. You're here to listen to our terms. The chamber erupted in angry voices from various species. But President Martinez continued speaking as if nothing had happened. Humanity requires 3 things from the Council. First, all human colonies in space claimed by our species will be recognized as sovereign human territory. No Council ships will enter our space without explicit permission. Ambassador Zexhai spoke up, his crystal form flashing with indignation. You cannot simply claim vast sections of the galaxy for one species. The established systems of territorial division have existed for millennia. Second, Martinez continued, ignoring the interruption, the Council will formally dissolve its military forces. Your species have proven that you cannot be trusted with weapons capable of threatening human civilians. This demand created even more chaos among the assembled representatives. General Mordock roared his protests while others shouted in their various languages. And third, the President said, raising her voice to be heard over the noise, humanity will assume responsibility for maintaining peace and order in this galaxy. The Council system has proven inadequate for dealing with real threats. High Counselor Vexithera's energy form pulsed bright red with fury. You're demanding nothing less than the surrender of galactic civilization to human rule. This is unacceptable. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her expression cold and professional. Counselor, I think you misunderstand the situation. These aren't demands. They're notifications. We're telling you what's going to happen, not asking for your permission. Dr. Morrison activated a holographic display that showed the current military situation across the galaxy. The image was sobering. Human fleets were positioned near every major Council world. While the remaining Council forces were scattered and outnumbered, our analysis indicates that the Council's remaining military assets could be eliminated within 72 hours if we chose to continue aggressive operations, the scientist explained. However, President Martinez believes it would be better for everyone if we could transition to the new order peacefully. President Martinez nodded. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy through fear and destruction. We want to build something better than what the Council provided. But make no mistake, we will have peace on our terms one way or another. She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Your species can continue to exist and govern yourselves as you always have. But the era of the Galactic Council imposing its will on others is over. Humanity will ensure that no species can threaten another with conquest or forced submission. Ambassador Zexhai's voice was barely a whisper. And if we refuse your terms? Admiral Chen answered before the President could speak. Then you'll discover what our fleet can do when we're not holding back. So far we've been fighting a limited war, trying to minimize casualties and preserve galactic infrastructure.